Okay, all right. I'm just waiting for Joanna because we need to record and she's the only one that can hit the record button because she's hosting this. So I'm gonna, in past a year in the makings, I have had my own actually get started.
This meeting is being recorded.
I think I accidentally pressed the leave meeting instead of the got it button. Okay, I'm back. But oh, you guys be able to see me. Okay, all right. Sorry, there's always going to be flaws. Barbara, you're here. There's always going to be, it'll never go off without a hitch. So again, I'm going to have a paid Zoom account myself, but you pay for a year at a time and it's kind of spendy. And so I'm going to wait until our year actually starts so that I just pay for one full year rather than having to pay for a year plus some months or 2 years. And so we'll probably, if Joanna's willing, have her host any Zooms that we do before the workshop actually kicks off. And then I'll have my paid account and I will host them. So let me just warn y'all now, I am like so excited that I can't sit still. So I'm probably gonna drive you guys all maybe a little bit crazy and I may be little all over the place, but you guys are used to this. So I've got a whole bunch of notes because my excitement may cause me to miss some things. So a couple of things. We need to have a hard stop time of 6 p.m. because Joanna has to catch a flight. And so, and then also we're super fortunate because a military friend who, actually the gentleman that married Josh and I, he is from.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, looks like we're recording again. But anyhow, the gentleman, we call him Reverend, but he was ordained online, but he's a military friend. He's gonna come over for dinner and I think he's gonna be here around 6. You probably will hear Josh cooking. Our kitchen is right there. So if you hear that, that's just what he's doing, but he knows he has to have earphones in because he's not allowed to listen to girl talk. Okay, so again, for anybody who's just starting to tune in, down in the very bottom left-hand corner, if you'll click on the mute button, there's an icon down there at the bottom, and that'll make it so that we don't hear anything that's going on in your background. But if you need to talk and tell us something, then you will have to hit the unmute button to make that happens. So anyhow, thank you, Joanna, for making this work for us today. And I hope it wasn't too stressful for you getting everything to come together. So the other thing I have to tell you, I'm talking with a lip because I'm in Invisalign again, just for a few different reasons, but my dentist does Invisalign and so I can get it done super affordably and my teeth are starting to shift and I have a horrible clenching and grinding problem. And so we're trying to deal with that too. So, but I have to wear them 22 out of 24 hours a day. So I'm just going to be lispy while we do this. So I'm so excited. So there are 8 gals who previously have done the photographer's workshop who have never done a year in the making. And so I don't know, I don't think all of them could get on tonight, but Abby Forney, Annie Chang, Barbara Hinshaw in the house, Chris Davis, I think she's on here too. Isa Walish, she, I believe is on here too. Jamie Victor, Michelle Isaac, Polly Hadelman, and maybe, just maybe, I haven't heard back from her yet. Well, she contacted me earlier, and she sounds like she's in, but a really wonderful woman named Eleanor Forte. So I'm just really super excited about this, and I know all of you guys so well that I know that this will be like just a great opportunity and that everybody will welcome everybody in. But I just want to welcome you guys that are brand new to this. Like, it makes me especially excited to have you here, and oddly, even a little weepy right now. So super happy to have you guys here, and it's going to be such a great year, and every single one of us want to do anything and everything we can to encourage you and just welcome you into the fold. Okay, so class start date. So I think I had originally said tentative date start of March 6th. I think I'm going to move that to the 13th of March. Still not firm, but I think this is what we're going to do. In all years past, when I did a year in the making, I always started halfway into the month so that we could get kind of a slow start. So instead of so every month there's always 4 goals, but during the month that we start, if we start halfway into the month, that means we also end halfway through the month. And then I just do 2 goals instead of 4 goals. So it's not so overwhelming while we're all kind of trying to figure things out. Realistically, because the month of March has a lot of days in it, that still means that we have 3 full weeks in March once we actually get started, which is fantastic. And I'll also release the goals to you at the beginning of the month, of March, even though that month the class won't have started yet, just because there's a few things in the very first goal and a few different things that you may want to like kind of start prepping and preparing for. So again, tentative is going to be March 13th. In the meantime, I am hoping that everybody can send me anything and everything that you think of that might be beneficial to our year, and not just before the workshop kicks off, but even during the workshop. So if we're all using our collective minds, if you see something like some really cool phone photography tips on YouTube or on Facebook, send them my way, please. If you see a really cool quote that you think would be so perfect to share with the group, send it my way. If you watch a really cool TED Talk, I mean, just anything. If there's something that you're doing that like really works for you and you're like, I feel like the whole world should know this, like, please send it my way. Again, not just before the workshop starts, but throughout the entire workshop, because I just think that like collectively and collaboratively, we're so much smarter than if we're just relying on me and mine, which is limited. And so please, please, please send stuff my way, however big or small. It'll be of interest to me to look into and see if it's a good fit for the group. Let's see. Okay, question for you all. In past workshops, I have always used Dropbox folders because to share information, and that has always worked in the past because y'all can, some of you have paid accounts, but you all can make it work with free accounts as well. Off the top of everyone's head, does anybody know, like, is there a better way of sharing information now that I'm not aware of? And if you need to tell me, then you just need to unmute yourself and talk. Is there anybody that like is in the business world that is still using Dropbox really successfully and thinks that it's the way to go? Nikki's raising her hand. Anybody else? Sharon, yes. Sunny. Okay, so is that like, if you're like, let's go with Dropbox, everybody raise your hand. Okay, all right, I say we still go with Dropbox then. So if anybody thinks of something else that thinks is a better way of sharing, please let me know, but it will be my goal here in the next couple of weeks to get Dropbox folders set up for everyone. And so you will get an invite to join that Dropbox folder. In the meantime, if you don't already have Dropbox, just go to, I'm sure it's dropbox.com, and download their free, like start a free account. You don't need to pay for it, just start a free account so that you have it. And that way, when your Dropbox invitation comes, you'll already have that set up and ready to go. Another question for you all. So, I am working on lessons, and
The recording has stopped. This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, I think we're recording again. There's going to be a whole lot of videos posted on YouTube for anybody who missed the meetings. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is I need to add links into some of the PDFs. And this is the kind of stuff that like my brain just doesn't understand. In the past, I have used a website called Bitly, B-I-T-L-Y, to shorten my links so they weren't super long. But what I really want to do is I don't even want to like see the actual weird text for the link. I just want to have my text become a link. Does that make sense? Is there anybody in the business world that knows how to make that happen?
So you can do that with Bitly for what it's worth.
Oh,
But I think you have to do it with the paid version of Bitly. And the other option is I actually weirdly think you can do that with Canva now.
With what?
Canva.
Will you spell that for me, Lindsay?
Canva. It's like a little quasi design social media software, like online software.
Canva.
Mm-hmm. But
Okay.
Bitly, I know for work, we always just you can like customize the back half of your Bitly. So it would be like Bitly /AYITM 4.0 whatever. So I mean, like you can definitely customize Bitlys too.
Okay, so I'm gonna look into that. Lindsay, if I have questions, can I reach out to you?
Yeah.
Awesome. Lindsay, would you be willing to give everyone a little update on how you're doing? Because I think everybody's wondering.
I'm doing okay. I'm in a hotel now. The stress of last week, let me actually see. The stress of last week won out, and I tested positive with COVID for the first time yesterday. So you know what? It could be worse though. I've got medicine and I've got a place to sleep, and we're hoping that we'll get in an apartment in the next week or so. So we're just kind of hanging in there. My mom had just gotten over COVID, and so she's been able to be over here and come bring us goodies. And it's just been a very quiet hotel stay.
Right on, but like you're like everything's kind of like progressing and
So
moving
nothing
forward.
has actually progressed. They were supposed to, like, our mitigation team was supposed to come get some salvageable stuff out of the house last week, and they haven't yet. I'm not really sure what the holdup is. So like nothing has happened at our house. It's just
Okay, kind of
sitting, waiting.
stalled.
Yeah,
Okay.
so like I'll actually probably leave this call in like an hour and go check on the house and make sure everything still is like
Okay.
locked up and boarded up and everything, and then and basically call and be like, okay, we need to start this process. So it's gonna be fine. It's been
Yeah.
okay. I mean, it could have been worse, it could have been better, but it is what it is. And so we're just kind of taking it a day at a time.
Are you like in a pretty good mind space?
Yeah, and honestly, now I have to take 5 days off of work, so that's nice.
Awesome.
And it gives me plenty of time to catch up on schoolwork. I'm in grad school, and there's not much stuff at the hotel, so it's pretty clean, and we're just trying to stay above water as it is. So yeah, we're doing okay.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for updating. I didn't mean to like put you on the spot or anything, but
No,
I knew that everybody here was probably going, "Hey, Lindsay."
No, I wish there was more of an update. I'm really anxious to get into an apartment. I think that that's going to make us feel about 1,000,000 times better.
I would think so too. So I hope that it's just a real short delay period that you're in.
Yeah. And Paxlovid has been great, so I don't even feel that bad. I just have COVID and can't go to work.
All right. The offer still stands. I know I got so many emails from people saying, "Hey, what can we do?" So you let us know.
And I so deeply appreciate the emails that I've gotten. I've gotten so many emails that I haven't even been able to respond to everyone. So, but I've read them and they genuinely brought joy to my day.
I should have added that as well, that if you respond, please don't expect a response in return, just because I know that you have a lot going on and nobody wants you to feel any extra pressure. We just want to lighten your load.
We got our laptops back from the mitigation company yesterday. So today, I've actually even opened my laptop to look.
I can't even believe you're here. Like you get like 1,000 extra credit points just for being here.
Well, I'm excited, and I'm excited to be part of this. So yeah, I don't want to distract too much, but yes, I'm glad to be here today.
We're super excited to have you. Thank you so much, Lindsay. So I'll look into that Canva. If anybody thinks of anything else, let me know. These are just like, you guys know that I just struggle with the technical aspects stuff a lot. And so these are just questions that I will always need help with. In that same line of questioning, so I have historically had a wonderful little team of proofers who have the painstaking task of dealing with my conversational writing and some common grammatical things that I just can never seem to figure out. But what I've got at this point in time, so Susan Thornton is going to proof all of the goals that I write. What I need in addition to that is and I know there's a few other gals that I've talked to a little bit, or that have done some proofing for me in the past, and they may still be available, but I also don't want to like put a huge burden on them. But the other things that I need help with proofing is going to be, once we get rolling, it'll be some of the weekly release stuff that I send out, and sometimes I just send it out with typos. But some of those things, and sometimes that's kind of a quick, I need kind of a quick turnaround time, because like I'm trying to, I don't write a lot of those things far in advance, because it's just kind of like, where is my head in the moment? Like, what am I experiencing in the moment? What are we discussing in the moment? Like, where are we kind of collectively at? So some of those weekly releases typically need a quick turnaround time. The other thing that I'm going to need proofing on is stuff that goes out before the workshop kicks off. And so if anybody, and you don't need to answer me now, but if anybody is, those things are going to be things that need a quicker turnaround time. Susan's working with me. She's got a full-time job, but the goals, she'll have like a longer turnaround time. So if you're a really good proofer, if you enjoy proofing, and if you, a quick turnaround time isn't bothersome to you, maybe just email me and we can chat a little bit about that. But also, I'm just going to send out stuff with typos. It's just going to happen a lot. So, okay. All right. So let's see here. What else have I got? If you have not turned in your quote yet, not too late to turn in quotes. I just would like them pretty soon. A lot of people have contacted me and changed their quote multiple times. That's totally fine too. Just make sure that you hear back from me, because if I don't respond to you, maybe it means I didn't get your email or something like that. But in general, what I'm looking for is just, it's a project that I'm putting together that's going to be shared with everybody. And I know it's so funny. Like, I'm like, Josh says I'm the girl who cried favorite because everything's my favorite. So it's very easy for me to come up with like 100 favorite quotes. But other people are like, it's stressing them out. It's like, how can I pick my all-time favorite? Like, I'm not asking you to tattoo it on your forehead. It's gonna be okay. But just send me something that feels like insightful to you or motivational to you, and that you want to motivate and bring insight or kindness or comfort to everybody else. Something that feels fitting for a year in the making. So I would love to get this task wrapped up pretty soon. And so I will extend it to another week. And so feel free to send Leora, if I didn't tell you already, then the second one you sent me, so perfect. I loved it so much. That was so good. So Leora couldn't use her first one because somebody had already used hers. And so I had to ask for a second one from Leora, but I loved her second one. I'm going to be sending out more information about this soon, but in the past, in a year in the making, and this, you guys probably don't even care, but I'm going to tell you anyhow, there was 4 goals each month. So personal growth, health and wellness, photography, and own less and live more. I am changing the names of these a little bit for some very specific reasons. It probably doesn't matter all that much to you. I'm gonna share the reasons anyhow. So personal growth is now just going to be growth, because even though it's your personal growth actually affects everyone else and promotes their personal growth too. So we're just calling it growth, nice and simple. Health and wellness is now going to just be wellness, because sometimes people have a bad connotation with the word health, and also because I'm changing everything into one word instead of multiple words. So now it's just wellness. Instead of photography, it's just going to be photos because not everybody's doing the same thing with photography. Some people's goal this year is organizing photos. Some people's goal this year is displaying photos. And so it's just anything and everything related to photos. And then instead of own less and live more, it's just going to be the word space. And the reason it's going to be the word space is several, I was going to say two-pronged, but it's several pronged. One being that we don't have to tackle our entire home. We're just tackling it one space at a time. And then when I think that you don't even have to tackle your whole kitchen. It could be one drawer in your kitchen because that's a space, right? And then what I like about the word space, because I like to play on words, is also thinking about how as we make these spaces what we want them to be, it opens up space in our calendar, in our lives, right? And then it opens up space in our minds too, right? So I'm just liking the word space. So that's what it's going to be. I know that I had originally talked about rewriting some goals, not rewriting others. I'm just rewriting all of them. And so there's a few things that come along with that. One of the things I think I already mentioned to you guys is that you guys know I'm verbose and my writing is verbose, but what I want to do with these goals is I want them to be 2 to 3 pages max, and most of them will be 2 pages. What I want is one page that says why, and then 1 page that has these specific action items, knowing that it's all of our job collectively to add to these action items. I may put things on there that you're oh yeah, that's not going to work for me, but here is what does work for me. And then my hope, and we'll talk about it later, is that by the end of the month, you all will be adding to this action item list, and we'll actually come up with a whole new action item list that I'll resend out to everyone again, that will be a collective action item list. And so again, I want everything that we're doing to be so collaborative, because I think it's going to be so much better. And so because I'm writing, so my goal is not to have everything written before the workshop kicks off, for a few reasons, because that would be impossible for me to write 50 goals before the year kicks off. But another reason is that I'm going to have the entire year, I'm just going to have a working syllabus going, because I want to use the direction and the momentum of what we're all doing together to dictate where we go with our goals. And so while I have a good general idea of where we're going, I may decide halfway through the year to completely abandon a future goal in lieu of something that I think is going to serve us better. And so the only downfall I see with that, 2 downfalls. One is that you're not going to have a firm syllabus, and I don't think that's going to bother anybody that much. I'm super type A, and it's not even going to bother me that much. So I don't think it's going to bother anybody that much. The only other downfall is that I make, some of you may remember, some of you have used them, some of you never use them, but artwork that you can print out and then cut up and then stick wherever you want, on a board or someplace that and it pertains specifically to that month and that month's goals. And it's really nice if I have all of that ready at the beginning of the workshop, because then you can just go to the print shop, print it all up at once, and not have to mess with it again. But that's not going to be possible because the goals are going to be evolving and changing. So that's and that is a downfall, honestly, but I think it's a worthwhile downfall. Let's see. And then speaking of goals, soon, I'll send out an email, and I'm going to ask everyone to prioritize those 4 goals. So again, growth, wellness, photos, and space. And I'm going to have you tell me and you're not committed to this, it's not the whole year you change your mind and be nope, you said you were doing it in this order. You can change your mind as things change. But you're going to tell me what order those fall in priority for you, knowing that we're full-grown women and we know that we cannot give the same amount of attention to every single goal. And so you're going to decide in order what your priorities are. And that means that when you're tight on time, you're only going to work on your number one priority and everything else can slip. Oh, well, right? If you have more time, you can work on the top two, right? But there's going to be very few people that can work on all four. And right now you might be going, well, I'll be one of those very few people then, right? But you're not going to be. You're just not. So like, there's always going to be your top goals. They're always going to get the vast majority of your attention. And then the things that are at the bottom, if you have time, they might get a little bit of your attention, right? But you can always come back to them later. There's always another year in the making, even if we're not all collectively doing it together, you can always come back to those things. So I'll be sending out an email about that probably in the next week or so. And that's also going to be part of what I use to put together accountability groups. And for those ladies that have not been part of a year in the making in the past, we do small little accountability groups, typically with 4 students. You're not forced to join one, but there have been some lifelong friendships formed from these ladies that years and years later, Carrie's shaking her head, years and years later, still stay in close contact all the time. Part of what we'll also be doing is how frequently do you want to be in contact with your accountability group? Some people want daily contact. Some people would prefer weekly contact, but I probably wouldn't suggest less than weekly contact. I think it's just too much time in between, but we can discuss all of that as well. Okay, so anybody have any questions so far? We all good? You just got to unmute and ask a question if you got it. No? You're all so cute and pretty. Okay, so I sent out an email earlier today with the questions that I currently had for the like getting to know you, or that your bio Q&A. So again, for gals that are new to a year in the making, historically, we have written, all of us, not all of us, many of us wrote something called Your Story. And we kind of just like wrote stories, however much we were comfortable in sharing. Some people wrote 3-page stories. I think mine might have been like, I don't know, 18 or 20 pages. It was long. And we really just tried to really be as open and honest and vulnerable, as overused as that word is, in order so that, like, if we share ourselves, that you feel comfortable in sharing yourself and you feel like you understand something more deeply about me, and that hopefully helps in some arena of your life, and vice versa. That wasn't an incredibly daunting process for me because I like to write, and because I'm pretty open with stuff, naturally open with stuff, because I guess my take on it is, and this doesn't mean it has to be your take, I don't know, like I just feel like if somebody is the type of person that they're going to use something that I've shared against me, and you guys, it has happened, right? It's not like this hasn't happened, but that says something about them and not me. And what I would prefer, like, first of all, like, I'm very trusting by nature, but I also just trust that by and large, this group would not share my personal information, but you actually, and this does not stand for anybody else, but me and me alone, if there's some part of my story, like if you were sitting down with a woman who's hurting and she's been through something that you're like, oh my gosh, my friend Karen's been through that, and you felt like, oh, I wonder if Karen would be okay for me to share part of her story so that I help this other woman, the answer is you don't have to contact me. The answer is yes. Like, if there's something about my story, however personal it is, that helps somebody else, you all have my permission from here on out to share that. But that does not hold true for anyone else in this class. No one else in this class. Like, there's nothing that you know about anybody else in this class that you have permission to share unless you have specifically asked them if you could share it, okay? So let me keep going with this. So the great things about these stories is that, wow, we shared a lot of information, and I think it was even really, really good for a lot of women. Like the writing process was really cathartic. For other women, no way was this going to happen. Like, and I'm okay with that too, because like for some women, it's like, I don't feel the need to go back there. I don't feel like there's anything from it that's going to benefit me at all. And I think that's okay too. Like just because it's cathartic for someone doesn't mean it's going to be cathartic for someone else. And so what I kind of came to this year, and there's mixed opinions on this, as you might imagine, amongst all of us, is that writing your story is optional. What we're going to do in lieu of potentially, well, no, what we are doing in lieu of that, and if you still want to write your story or share your story that you've already written, you can. But we're going to do like this questionnaire format that I think is much less intimidating. You can answer the questions you want to answer. You can leave blank the questions you don't feel like answering. You can fill some out now. You can add to them later. Not a problem. I think that, and I shared this before, I do think one of the downfalls in writing the stories, at least for me in retrospect, was that I think I just made this, I think I shared this in the last Zoom, but I think I just kind of like, maybe we all kind of make this assumption that like everybody knows lots of good stuff has happened in my life, right? Like I could write 200 pages of all the good stuff that's happened in my life. I could write thousands of pages, all the good stuff that's happened in my life. But like when you're like, oh, I got to get this all condensed in, you're just like, well, they probably just need to know about the bad shit. So I think almost make our life stories look the bad and even make us get focused on the bad if we're not really, really careful and deliberate. So that's something to think about as well. If you do decide to share your story, meaning share the one you've already written or take that one and add to it or write one entirely from scratch, that's going to not be shared with the entire group. It's just going to be shared within your accountability group. And within your accountability group, what everyone's going to need to do is they're either going to need, not everybody in the accountability group has to agree to sharing their story. Like one person could say that they're going to share it, right? And that's totally fine. And you just got to make that decision for yourself. But what I also want to make sure that happens is that if you choose to, let's see, that everyone gets to personally decide if they want to share it. And then people that say no have two options. No, but please encourage me to write it at my own pace because I do want to share it. Okay. Or no, and please don't try to encourage me about it, right? Because in an accountability group, we're like, my job's to encourage, my job's to encourage. And if it felt good to me to write my story, it's going to feel good to her too, right? And you know what? Maybe it's not, and that's okay, right? And so people that are not submitting their story at the beginning of class can say, again, no, not right now, but please encourage me. And encourage doesn't mean pester, right? It just means encourage, right? And then, or no, and please don't encourage me because it's not something that I'm choosing to do. And then everybody in the group goes, okay, awesome. Okay. And then we just move forward like that. Past a year in the makings, I deleted from Dropbox everyone's stories because it made me nervous to have those stories on there. I mean, we've been 4 years in between a year in the making, and I just didn't want them just sitting in Dropbox. So I removed everybody's stories, and I didn't want them sitting on my hard drive either because that also scared me to have them there. Not like anybody's trying to like come in and sneak into my hard drive, but I also deleted my own story. So if anybody happened to save mine and you have it, feel free to email it to me because I would like to still have my story. And I need to share my story with everyone just because that's something I need to do. But I don't have it and I'm not rewriting the whole dang thing. So if somebody has it, please send it to me. Let's see here. Okay, so speaking of, so let me just find it. So just in the time since I sent out that email earlier with the questions that I had, I got some great new questions that came in. I think it was Sunny who said, let's share hobbies. hello, let's definitely share hobbies. This is why I need you guys to help me with everything. Because like you guys think of such great things. Okay. And then Jenny had some great ones too. This is such a good one. Where did you take your photography after the photographer's workshop? Great question. Maybe you didn't pursue it any further. Totally okay, right? Maybe you started your own business. I think we're all just interested, like, what are you doing with it? Or what did you do with it? She also had some other good ones. What does a typical day look like for you? What do you want a typical day to look like for you? Because these can be two very different things. And you'll catch my tune when you read our very first goal, because this is like right where my brain has been. And then how do you want to feel at the end of the year? I thought that was such a great one too. So these are some really great additions. They all made the list. Does anybody else either want to share here any questions you had about those things, any additional questions you think we should add? And if you think of questions later, you can email me. I don't really want like 100 questions to end up on this list eventually. But you know, I also want it to be a really interesting and informative list as well. Does anybody have any thoughts or ideas to add to that? Just have to unmute yourself. Elaine, down in that lower left-hand corner, just unmute yourself. You're okay.
I haven't Zoomed in about 9 months. But one thing I would say is it felt overwhelming sometimes. And some people had, I mean, it was free form written. So it was real hard for me to remember, oh, is she the one that did such and such, to keep people's stories straight? If there would have somehow been more structure to it, where I could have said, oh, who had the hobby? And I looked through all, oh, she had that hobby. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. So so I think that this is part of the benefit of like just reading the full stories of your accountability group for those who choose to share it, because it's easier to keep those straight. And quite honestly, like it is overwhelming to think of reading. I think there's 47 of us. It's pretty overwhelming to think about, oh, good, Joanna has my story and she sent it to me. Oh, because she probably proved it. Joanna, did you prove it?
I did not proof your story, but I looked for it the other day so I could reread it. So I knew I had it.
So much. Thank you so much. So Elaine, going back to yours, so I think it can be very overwhelming to read 47 people's stories. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I want them to know like that I read it. I want them to know that like it meant something to me. And then you're like, now I need to contact 47 people individually. And it feels overwhelming. And if you're someone like me, like if you're a person who isn't good at compartmentalizing, reading 47 stories can also make you just want to crawl in bed and pull the covers over your head, because like you can't separate it like from your own heart, right? And so there's benefit to these stories, but they can be overwhelming. So Elaine, I'm working with my web guy to have, and everybody's going to have to write this in the same format with certain things, you know, like the questions will be bolded, you know what I mean? So like so you're going to, and they're going to be in the same order every single time, right? And so you're just going to be able to click underneath the person's name where it says click here to read the bio or whatever. And it's so like you can just be in at it, right? And so you'll be able to read